This is a Channel Africa podcast. You can also get Channel Africa on satellite PAS10, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and OpenView Bouquet Channel 628.
May the 9th is Victory Day in Russia, and it marks the anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II and is widely regarded as the second most widely celebrated holiday after the New Year. It's the highlight of the Russian calendar and an integral part of Russian culture. And one of the highlights of the celebrations is its annual military parade of the Russian Armed Forces on Moscow's Red Square. To tell us a little bit more about Victory Day and to talk about other issues as well, we're now joined by Russia's ambassador to South Africa, His Excellency Ilya Rogachev. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me.
So talk to us about the significance of Victory Day. I mean, this is 79 years on. What does it still mean to Russia and the Russians?
It is a big day for us. It is the biggest holiday, perhaps. We commemorate this event. Yes, it's a joyful event. But we say that we celebrate with the tears in our eyes, as the Soviet Union lost 27 million people in this war altogether. More than half of its national wealth was destroyed, 53%, as it was mostly concentrated in the European part of the USSR. Hundreds of cities and towns were destroyed. Dozens of thousands of villages burned. Hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated to Germany, to Western Europe, for forced labor. And a lot of monuments, historic artifacts, cultural objects were looted. So that was the biggest scar in our history, and the victory that we got cost us very dearly. There is almost none of the families in the former USSR which wouldn't lose at least one man in this war. To give you an example, men who were born between 1920 and 1924, in their prime age by the war started, only 4 out of 100 came back home from the front.
Wow.
And 3 of the 4 were invalids.
My goodness.
It's not surprising that we cannot forget this, that we will never forgo this date. And nowadays, when veterans are simply becoming less and less numerous because of the age, apparently, it's almost 80 years since the V-Day. There is an initiative, a truly 100% grassroots initiative, the so-called Immortal Regiment, when the descendants of the heroes, of the victims of the Second World War, or which is a great patriotic war for us, they march with the pictures of holding the pictures of their ancestors who participated in this war, either as military or as working very hard in the arrears in the industries, or being suffering such events as the siege of Leningrad and so on.
So it's more a commemoration actually than a celebration, even though one is grateful for the victory. But as you say, it's more trying to remember those that passed away. How is it marked? I know that one of the big things is also the great military parade on Red Square.
Yes, it is. There are different aspects to it. You're absolutely right. One is, of course, it is the military victory. This is why there is this parade. As I said, I mentioned the immortal regiment. We say that nothing is forgotten and no one is forgotten. And I assure you that no one will be. So now, all over Russia and in many other places in the world, not only in the former USSR, but in other cities, including Western countries, people take to the streets and they march carrying the portraits of their ancestors. And this immortal regiment, it's a really popular movement. It's very numerous. For example, only in Moscow, more than 1.5 million people take part in it every year, every 9th of May. So they march also through the Red Square after the military.
All right. I mean, and it comes at a difficult time for Russia because we're talking about victory in war, but all of this loss. And this is coming at a time where I think we're on day 804 with the war in Ukraine. How will it be marked with this backdrop? Because Russians have lost their lives in Ukraine as well.
There is a direct link, of course, between these two events, as those whom we are fighting in Ukraine right now, they are the descendants and ideological heirs to Nazi collaborators, Bandera and Shukhevich and others. And our military guys used to say that we have some unfinished business, that what our great-grandfathers and great-grandfathers haven't finished, we have to finish it now.
Depending on who you read and which news source, the Ukraine-Russia conflict has got many versions. Tell us what Russia's take is on what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. How did this war come about? Was it necessary? Give us your perspective.
Yes, well, I think that in contrast with the situation 2 years ago, or two plus years ago, now more and more people realize that it wasn't Russia's choice. We were compelled to start this war. The whole situation was constructed for many years so that there is an armed conflict between our two countries. And we definitely didn't want that because we considered Ukrainians our brothers and sisters, both of us being Slavic peoples, Orthodox Christian, having lived in one country for 70 plus years, and so on. So we used to think about each other as countrymen. So this is why emotionally this war was so difficult to start, and it is still very difficult to very many. Though more and more people, of course, get in line with the realities and treat now Ukrainians, think of them as non-brothers and non-sisters. They're sadly, very sadly, these terms are more and more used in public space. But at least it has this notion that once we've been brothers and sisters. But it becomes more and more apparent that this is a proxy war that the West provoked us into. We were compelled to do this through, as I said, the construction of a set of circumstances that relate to the domain of strategic security.
How does it end? Because even if there's a military victory, there still will be this feeling between Ukraine and Russia. How does this end? How does this get resolved so that a long-term peace will prevail?
I think that discussing this issue from the point of view of just Russia-Ukrainian relationship is somewhat narrowing down the subject matter, because the security interests that Russia tries to ensure, to guarantee for itself, they stretch far beyond Ukraine properly. So it's the, as I said, the area of strategic security. And
is this Ukraine joining NATO?
As one of the elements, yes, it is just one piece of the puzzle. There are others as well, but the immediate threat would be coming from Ukrainian territory. If it were to become a NATO member, but even without becoming a formally NATO member, NATO countries, US, UK and others, were already exploiting and appropriating Ukrainian territory for their military purposes. And we knew that, and this is not something that is widely or was widely discussed in the mainstream media. But NATO bases were to appear there, and in particular naval bases on the Black Sea shore. So and there are such military nuances like, the flight time of rockets and missiles from the territory of Ukraine to Moscow, and so on.
What this has done has strained relations significantly between Russia and the West. And I just wonder where things go from here. We heard the president, when he was being inaugurated, hint about the difficulties and these challenges. Have things ever been this bad between Russia and the West? And is there a way back?
Well, I think that there certainly is a way back. In terms of being on the verge of open conflict between NATO, the West, and Russia, I think that I don't remember things being that bad. And I remember things since 1970s. But the West has to back off. Our legitimate security interests have to be recognized and treated with certain respect they deserve, and they have to be satisfied. And there was an attempt on our behalf, not once, but you may remember that our President Putin, tried to warn former Western partners, non-partners as we say now, again by analogy, to respect our security interests since at least 2007. That was this landmark intervention at the Munich Security Conference, so in 2007. And the latest attempt was made just before the Special Military Operation, SMO, as we call it, in December 2021, when draft treaties were sent from Moscow to Washington separately to the United States to regulate things bilaterally, and also to Brussels, to NATO HQ. And these draft treaties contained the whole range of issues related to Russian strategic interests, and Ukraine was just like a puzzle, a piece of the puzzle in it. It's just one of the elements. And everything could have been regulated through a serious negotiation and a discussion of these matters on the substantive side, and perhaps by concluding such treaties. But they were simply laughed at and brushed aside by the West. Nobody cared to discuss them seriously, even to consider seriously, perhaps. So we were again put in the circumstances when we had to begin this operation. And it's very sad that Ukrainian population, a large part of it at least, agreed to serve the proxies in this war of the West against Russia. And this is the part of the war, hybrid war, that is waged against Russia, against China, and by the West in order to preserve its dominance that it enjoyed for some 500 years.
A dominance that we're seeing diminish over time, and part of that has been the emergence of BRICS and the global south. What does BRICS mean for Russia?
Well, this is an emergence of the new world order. We think that a relationship between countries, BRICS members, personify this coming new world order when we treat each other truly with respect to the sovereignty and to the interests of each other. We do not negotiate for the sake of negotiating. There is no hidden agendas. All the decisions are taken by consensus. If we do not manage, not by this hypocritical formulas, consensus -1, -2, -3, -4, as in FATF, for example, Financial Action Task Force, but by consensus. So BRICS delegations really have to harmonize their positions. And there are examples already of different delegations really going very far from their initial stance in order to accommodate interests of other partners in BRICS. Or the decision is not taken simply. It is postponed.
I wish we had so much more time, but we don't, unfortunately. So we're going to move on to your foreign policy, I guess, and your relationship with the continent of Africa. Some are suggesting that there's a new scramble for Africa. It used to be the West, and now we've got Russia and China scrambling for influence on the continent. What's your take about Russia's intentions on the continent?
Well, the very way, the traditional way you formulate your question is already kind of misleading, because we're not scrambling for influence. This is not what we're seeking in Africa. This is the cliche, Western cliche from the Western narratives, because they consider and they assess and they implement the policies from this standing point of view, and so they apply it to everyone else, and this is not the case with us. We seek a good, friendly relationship with all the countries on the continent, with all the peoples on the continent. There is a very solid historical base for that, as USSR helped very much the process of decolonization of Africa, and we assisted in many different ways, but also including diplomatically, politically and diplomatically. Let me just mention the 1960 Declaration on the granting of independence to the colonial countries and peoples, and since then we facilitated very much, our diplomats facilitated very much this process in the UN, in particular in the Security Council, where so many times veto was used in the best interests of Africans. But in general, the fundamental principle of our policy vis-a-vis Africans is that we follow it, African solutions to African problems. If Africans do not want us to do something, we do not do that. And we try to do what they want. We try to be helpful in many different areas, including security, where we can offer a lot. Strengthening sovereignty from different points of view. Again, security, economy, education, energy, agricultural business, and so on. And our military or paramilitary instructors are in the countries, only in those countries, and only when the respective governments invite them to. So, this is cooperation. I hope it's adding to the authority.
You mentioned security, and perhaps you can give us some clarity about this group known as the Wagner Group, which is working with some of the juntas in West Africa in particular. Is this part of the Russian authority? Are they working independently? What is the Wagner Group and their relation with Russia?
The Wagner Group is no more since early this year. So those are military or paramilitary contractors. And yes, they assist governments when the governments that are interested in getting their services.
All right. So it had nothing to do with the Russian government?
No, I wouldn't be so categorical. I think that through Ministry of Defense there is something. You can trace some legal ties. Yes.
Okay.
But we do not label the governments in Western Africa by juntas.
Okay. All right. I mean, there are military regimes that seized power through coup d'états.
Well, you can interpret it in different ways again.
All right. Okay, we'll leave that. I'm very fascinated by the BRICS story. Russia is chairing this year, and I just wonder, what are the big issues that Russia is pushing for the BRICS grouping this year?
Well, yes, we are the presidency in the BRICS for this year, 2024. We took over from the South African presidency, which achieved a major success in developing BRICS at the summit here in Joburg last year. Historic decision was adopted to enlarge BRICS, and so it is upon us now to ensure, as we say, seamless built-in of the new members in the workings of BRICS bodies. And there are more and more BRICS bodies, organs, fora. Under our chairmanship, there will be altogether next to 250 events held during the year. So if you deduct weekends and holidays, it will be basically one per day. So the cooperation in BRICS intensifies very much, and we need to ensure this smooth transition for the newcomers into the BRICS format. We need to make sure that everything goes smoothly, and that they really become an integral part of the entity.
I mean, I hear that one of the things that Russia has been wanting to see is the introduction of a BRICS currency, perhaps, or a movement away from the US dollar. Is that something that you'll be trying to champion?
Yes, it is one of the far-reaching goals in the economy pillar. in BRICS functioning. And but we realize that we're not there yet. It's not a matter of a few weeks or months. It's a matter of years. But this goal is there on the horizon. It is always with us. For as much as US dollar and euro and other reserve currencies are weaponized by the West, including through economic sanctions, unilateral economic sanctions, that are illegal from the point of view of modern international law. And even if a country is not sanctioned and punished directly through these sanctioning measures, there is always or almost always some political conditions attached to dollar. All these international financial institutions, loans, they are usually politically motivated or politically caused, conditioned.
You talk about the need for a new world order. Do you think that the UN needs to be reordered, and particularly the UN Security Council, which Russia is a part? Do you think that that needs reform?
Yes, to a certain extent, we agree with many of what you have formulated. With many measures that have been proposed, and we think that there are certain discrepancies between the realities of the modern world and how UN functions. We say that not only UN but also other international organizations, their agendas and their secretariats are privatized by the Western countries. We need to emancipate them in this sense. These organizations, especially the Universal UN, has to act really in the interests of all. And of course, there is place for discussions of reform of its main bodies, including UN Security Council, where the West is overrepresented and the global South and global East are underrepresented. So we agree on that, yes.
It's been a busy week in Russia. We've seen your president be inaugurated for a fifth term. What we also saw was a number of Western countries boycotting that. What's your feeling as a country to see countries like America saying that we're not going to be party to witnessing the inauguration of the Russian president?
It's their problem. They will have to deal with this government, with this president, and with ambassadors that this president nominates.
How do we? I mean, we've spoken about it before, but it can't stay like this, though, can it? I mean, this us and them, because you're all superpowers, and the world is dependent on the big countries of the world finding a way forward.
Well, it's not easy to find a way forward or a way out from the current situation, because we do not see that the anti-Russian sentiment in the Western capitals, their determination to inflict strategic defeat on Russia, not to allow it to win on the battlefield and so on, that it subsides. No, not really. They are ready to send, on their recent statements by different leaders lately, about sending their troops to Ukraine.
Right, on the ground.
Yes, so it's not in the as a matter of weeks. Again, we have to solve this issue.
If it's not solved, is there a real threat of a nuclear war?
Well, it depends upon how far our Western non-partners are ready to go in Ukraine.
So you would not be afraid to use nuclear weapons?
No, it's not about being afraid or not. Any sane person wouldn't want that.
All right. Okay. So let's go back to where we started, and it's a Victory Day. What's likely going to be the message from the President at this year's Victory Day celebration?
Well, I think that we can base ourselves on what he has already said yesterday at the inauguration, that we need to stay united. We will be united as people, and we will win, because for us, the whole history of Russia, more than 1,000 years, the memory of all our ancestors who won so many wars for us, is at stake. We cannot let them down, and we will prevail.
How united is Russia in 2024? Again, we hear about opposition figures like the Navalny's of this world, and the story that's told to us is that there is no real expression allowed for opposition voices in Russia.
Well, this is not true, because, of course, the miscalculation by the West was, in particular, about the potential unity of the Russian people vis-à-vis this situation, vis-à-vis this pressure on Russia. And apparently the reckoning was that economic sanctions will cause some domestic troubles, and it will either make easier for them to topple President Putin or to lead directly to the change of government by the Russians themselves. No, this is not the case. But opinions are very much different in Russia. They are divergent vis-à-vis this SMO, as I said, in particular emotionally. It was a very hard choice. And not everyone supports that. It's impossible to hide. And hence some potential conscripts left the country, and nobody blocked them, unlike in Ukraine. So their opinions are divergent, and it is possible to express your discontent or with any aspect of policy in Russia, but you cannot spread false information in order to smear, like part of a smearing campaign against Russian military in times of war. This is what is persecuted.
Your Excellency, we've run out of time. Many of the subjects we could have talked for hours, but thanks so much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us on some of these important issues.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much. That's Russia's ambassador to South Africa, His Excellency Ilya Rogachev, speaking to us around Russia's Victory Day, the most important day on the calendar, where they commemorate and remember those millions of people that lost their lives in World War II, but also victory against Nazi Germany at the time. And that's where we'll leave that conversation.
That podcast was courtesy of Channel Africa, the African Perspective.